Diana Ross. What if I told you that the glamorous woman draped in sequins, who made the world rise to its feet with "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," once laid awake as a little girl on a narrow cot in Detroit, whispering to herself that music was the only thing that could save her? That the same woman who seemed untouchable on stage carried scars so deep they bled quietly long after the lights went out. This is the untold story of Diana Ross, not just the diva, not just the legend, but the fragile girl who built her crown from struggle, sacrifice, and silence. Born in 1944 inches Detroit, Diana was the second of 6 children. Her father worked in a factory, her mother ran the home, and life was a daily fight against unpaid bills and thin cupboards. At just 7 years old, she was ripped from her world when her mother fell ill with tuberculosis. Diana and her siblings were sent away to live with grandparents in Alabama, a separation she later described as the moment her world collapsed. The fear of abandonment and the hunger to be seen and loved never left her. When her mother recovered and the family reunited in Detroit, they moved into the Brewster Douglas housing projects. The walls were thin, the stairwells dark, and danger was everywhere. Yet, in that bleak setting, a stubborn light began to grow inside her. Music became her lifeline. At Cass Technical High School, she studied fashion and cosmetology, determined to create beauty in a world where survival seemed to take all the air out of the room. She styled hair for neighbors to earn extra money and took a humble job at Hudson's department store, becoming the first young black woman in her position there. The glances were cold, the whispers cruel, but Diana held her head high and learned to swallow pride without losing dignity. Every tray she carried, every head of hair she styled, every small act of endurance was training for the world stage she didn't yet know awaited her. Her neighbor, Smokey Robinson, recognized her spark and encouraged her to pursue music. At just 14, Diana joined forces with Mary Wilson, Florence Ballard, and Betty McGlown to form the Primettes, later renamed the Supremes. They hustled for every chance, auditioned for Berry Gordy, and were told to come back when you're older. Still, Diana refused to walk away. For a year, she showed up at Motown like a shadow, running errands, clapping in the background, memorizing lyrics. She believed that one day someone would have no choice but to listen. And eventually, Gordy did. The Supremes were signed, but success didn't arrive in a golden carriage. They were mocked as the no-hit Supremes after 8 failed singles. Nights were spent patching dresses by candlelight and curling lashes with heated spoons, trying to hold themselves together while the dream kept slipping away. Then, almost by accident, they were given a song no one believed in, "Where Did Our Love Go?" Against every prediction, it soared to #1. And suddenly 3 girls from the projects were America's darlings. But fame doesn't hand out crowns without carving wounds. Diana was chosen as the group's lead, and slowly her face and voice became the brand. The spotlight loved her, but the sisterhood that had held them together began to crack. Florence, once a co-founder, felt erased. Mary grew distant. What had begun as 3 friends singing into cheap microphones now felt like one woman isolated in gowns that glittered brighter even as they cut deeper. For every cheer Diana received, she lost a little more of the bond that once kept her whole. By 1970, the group dissolved, and Diana stepped into the world alone. Her solo debut, "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," reached #1. Acting roles followed, including her powerhouse performance as Billie Holiday in Lady Sings the Blues, which earned her an Oscar nomination. She dazzled again in Mahogany and The Wiz. On paper, she had it all. But in interviews, she admitted freedom didn't feel free. The applause could shake stadium walls, but backstage, she often sat in silence, aching for the simple comfort of belonging to someone, somewhere. Her private life was just as complicated. Diana had fallen in love with Berry Gordy, the man who had guided her career. Their romance was passionate but risky, tangled with business and whispers of favoritism. In 1971, Diana gave birth to her first daughter, Rhonda. To the world, Rhonda was the child of Diana and her husband, music executive Robert Ellis Silberstein. The truth was more complicated. Berry Gordy was Rhonda's father. Diana carried that secret for years, protecting her daughter and her career, but also punishing herself in silence. She later confessed it felt like holding her breath every day, fearing the truth would leak and undo everything she had built. Her marriage to Robert gave her 2 more daughters, Tracy and Chudney, and for a while the family appeared picture perfect. But behind the photos and staged smiles was a house built on silence. By 1977, the weight of that silence crushed the marriage. Diana was left a single mother of 3, still juggling concerts, tabloids, and the gnawing guilt of secrets too heavy to speak aloud. As if heartbreak hadn't taken enough, her closest friendship fractured too. In the early 1980 seconds, Diana began a romance with Gene Simmons of Kiss, who had been in a long relationship with her dear friend Cher. What began with sparks ended in wreckage. Diana lost both Gene and Cher, the kind of betrayal that cut deeper than any critic ever could. She later admitted that losing a sister in friendship felt worse than losing any man. Then came the blow she had always feared. Her mother, Ernestine, passed away from breast cancer in 1984. Diana was shattered. On stage, she smiled and sang, but offstage, she admitted she felt like a light had gone out forever. Her mother had been her anchor since childhood, the voice in her head, reminding her of who she was before the world demanded Diana Ross. Without her, she felt unmoored. But life gave her another chance at happiness when she married Norwegian shipping magnate Arne Nass Jr. in 1986. They had 2 sons together, Ross, Arne, and Evan, and blended their families into what Diana once called a constellation of love. For a time, she felt blessed, radiant, even safe. Yet even in paradise, tragedy found her. In 1996, while Diana was on tour in Japan, she received the devastating call that her beloved brother Arthur had died. Unable to fly home in time, she poured her grief into a letter that her daughter read aloud at the funeral. The words, smudged with her tears, broke the silence in the church like glass shattering. It was another wound Diana carried quietly for the rest of her life. So when we picture Diana Ross, the glittering gowns, the towering hair, the iconic voice, we also need to see the girl who learned to endure hunger, the woman who raised children while carrying secrets, the sister who mourned friendships and family in silence. Fame gave her crowns, contracts, and ovations, but it also demanded sacrifice, trust, privacy, even parts of herself. And yet, through every heartbreak, she never stopped singing. Every note she ever gave the world carried both pain and resilience, both grief and grace. Diana Ross turned her wounds into anthems, her losses into performances, her silence into sound. If this journey moved you, if hearing the real story behind the spotlight gave you chills, do one thing: hit like and subscribe for more stories of icons whose lives shine far beyond the stage. Because Diana Ross proves that the brightest lights often rise from the darkest places.